Ladies and gentlemen, can I have your attention, please? Thank you. Thanks very much, everybody. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Hello. Thanks, everybody. My name's Heather Wellington, and I've been invited by the Department of Health and Human Services to facilitate today's forum on preventing and responding to occupational violence and aggression in Victorian health services. So welcome to you all. We've got people who've come here today from all across Victoria, from hospitals and health services large and small, from right across the range of professions, from the security sector, from the management sector. We've got good representation from our ambulance Victoria sector colleagues. So we've got a really good mix of people who are working right across the system, trying to manage this really difficult and challenging problem of providing services in the caring professions in an environment in which people are often subject to aggression by those they are trying to help. So it's an extremely difficult problem, but there's a lot of work being undertaken on this problem right across the sector. And the purpose of today is to provide an update for you on the work that's being undertaken by the Department of Health and Human Services and also by WorkSafe Victoria. It's really an information sharing day, so one of the objectives is to increase the knowledge of everybody in the room about what the problem is and what's being done about it, but particularly to hear from your colleagues from across the sector about the different initiatives that are being undertaken to try to manage this very difficult problem. And it's a bit of a showcasing day. There's some extremely interesting and innovative projects that are being undertaken, work that's being undertaken, and it's an opportunity for people to showcase their work, share their ideas, and for everyone else to absorb those and network with their colleagues and hopefully take away some really good ideas from today. The event today is being live streamed, so we're being joined by, I think, about 50 people or so from rural Victoria over the internet. So we'd like to welcome all of you as well, and particularly encourage those who aren't here in the room with us to submit any questions or comments that you may have. You can put them through, I think you've been given an email address, and you can submit your questions or comments, and they can be asked and addressed as part of the proceedings. I would like to, at this point, acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting and pay my respects to their elders past and present, and also pay my respects to any elders who might be in the room here at the meeting with us here today. So just a couple of housekeeping issues before we start. We'll just ask everybody to turn off their mobile phone, if you wouldn't mind. If you do need to keep it on, please turn the volume off and take yourself away from the venue if you do need to answer any calls. The ladies and gents facilities are out to the left of the venue over that way, and the presentations from today will be made available on the internet and I think emailed to all of the attendees here today, so you'll be able to have access to those. Just before we start the forum today, I know this week has been a really difficult week for everybody who works in the Victorian healthcare sector, and I know that every single person in this room will have been shocked and distressed to hear of the death of Dr. Patrick Pritchfold-Segman from Eastern Health Box Hill Hospital. He was the innocent victim of workplace violence in our hospitals, and his death is an absolutely unfathomable tragedy. He was a caring and giving healthcare professional, and I know he was a friend and colleague to some of the people who are attending here today, but even if we didn't know him, he was one of us across the healthcare system. And I know that everybody here will be deeply upset about what has happened to him and thinking very much at this time about his family and his friends and colleagues from Eastern Health and across the system. So we thought it would be appropriate to invite everybody to stand and spend a minute, thinking, reflecting on the life and contribution of Dr. Patrick Pritchfold-Segman and to pay our respects to him and his family. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll commence a minute's silence. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I invite you to sit again. Now, we'd like to commence the proceedings today with some opening remarks from Denise Ferrier. Denise is the Acting Director of Policy and Planning in the Health Services Policy and Commissioning area of the department. So, Denise, I welcome you to the podium. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Heather. Again, I'd like to just acknowledge traditional owners on the land in which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past and present and those in the room with us. Welcome to all of you. It's extremely pleasing to see so many people in the audience and also, as Heather said, people online. So, you know, it's an important topic, and this week's events have certainly brought it into stronger focus for all of us. But today really is an opportunity for us to spend time learning, sharing, networking, and thinking about the way forward in terms of tackling this very, as Heather said, complex and difficult problem. I would like to probably just, you know, give some opening remarks around the work that we have been doing in the department and with government, and just to sort of set up the day really. And then I'm going to hand it over, and I'm not going to spend too much time taking up kind of your precious time that many of you have given today. But I think we all agree that everyone has the right to feel safe at work, but that's often not the case for people who are working in our healthcare environment across Victoria. The government has made very public commitments about the actions that they are taking now in the immediate term to try and address the problem. Certainly the department and my team in Worker Health and Wellbeing have been working on this problem with sector representation and our stakeholders for more than just the last couple of weeks. This has been an ongoing piece of work that the team have been working on for several months, if not years. I think I said at a round table last week that the first report that people referenced to me around this issue was in 2005. This is not an issue that has been solved, and it is probably not one that is going to go away quickly, but we need to continue to commit to it. We need to find ways in which we can work effectively to prevent, manage and respond to occupational violence and aggression in our public healthcare system, and I actually am pleased to see the number of people represented across the private system here today as well. I'm acutely aware that this is a difficult problem and there is not a quick fix or one solution. We need a comprehensive and targeted approach, and we must build on the current work that's been undertaken and the previous learnings from the past. There is examples of great work across all of our health services, and we must learn to share that, and we must have opportunities to do that. So today is one of those. The idea of fixing this problem is not one just of prevention. It would be nice to say that we don't have the problem, but actually it does occur. And so we need to figure out how we best respond to it when it does, and how we learn from those incidences, and to make sure that we have appropriate supports in place for those people affected. By building on our collective experience and working together is the only way that we will achieve elimination of the problem and resolve some of the issues that we're facing. Today's program, and I'm pleased to say that it's a complex one and a comprehensive one, and it covers a range of topics, is really an opportunity for you to discuss, share, learn, you know, take back those learnings into your service, but also to actually think about what it is that you can contribute to others in their development journey around tackling this problem. Today's program will cover, as I said, sort of the issues around the public awareness campaign, and an example of that being discussed with our WorkSafe colleagues shortly, in terms of being able to give you what's happening in that space. You'll have presentations from health services about their work, and you'll also hear from the perspectives of others, including consumers and police. As I said, I am pleased to see the number of people in the room. I would like to encourage you to participate actively in the discussion, ask many questions, both of the speakers but also in the breaks that you have, and acknowledge the fact that this is a problem that we all must tackle together. So again, I'll be brief and say thank you for coming. I hope the day is enjoyable. I hope you spend lots of time having a chat to people and learn some things to take back to your workplace. Thank you.
Thanks, Denise, very much. We're going to move into our first session, which is providing you with an update from the department and from WorkSafe Victoria on the initiatives that they have been undertaking to address this problem. And we'll start with Patrice Wallace. Patrice is the manager of the health practice at WorkSafe Victoria, and she's going to be talking about the It's Never Okay campaign. So welcome to you, Patrice. Apologies, I thought we had a sequential presentation, but we've got two up together. So I'd like to also introduce Janelle Hearn. And Janelle is the Manager of Worker Health and Wellbeing, Department of Health and Human Services. And Janelle and Patrice will do a tag team presentation. Thank you.
Good morning and thanks for having me. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past and present and any who might be with us today. Janelle and I are going to start the day by showcasing the Occupational Violence and Aggression in Healthcare campaign that was launched 3 weeks ago. Many of you will have already seen the ads on TV and may have also been involved in some activities within your own health service in relation to the campaign. We thought it'd be a great opportunity to take you through how the campaign came about and the process we went through to get to the end product, which we're really proud of, and we're hoping will have a significant impact. This is the first time that WorkSafe, the Department of Health and Ambulance Victoria have worked together on a campaign like this, and it's been a really successful collaboration. Do I have a... Yep. Just waiting for the presentation.
Can I have some help with that link, please? There you go.
And do I just do that? Okay. So, by way of background, we know that occupational violence and aggression in healthcare is a major occupational health and safety issue. The research suggests that up to 95% of healthcare workers have experienced it, but only 1 in 5 or 20% report it. OVA claims in healthcare are on the rise. So in 2005, 18% of all OVA claims were from healthcare, and in 2014 that increased to 25%. And we also know that healthcare workers are 4.7 times more likely to lodge an OVA claim than other workers. And we also know that there was a recommendation in the 2015 Auditor General's Occupational Violence Against Healthcare Workers report that the Department of Health, WorkSafe and Ambulance Victoria should work together to develop public messaging to improve community awareness regarding the impact of OVA on healthcare workers and the need for appropriate and respectful behaviours towards our healthcare workers. Throughout the development of the process, we've undertaken significant stakeholder consultation. 2 key groups of stakeholders were utilised for this consultation: the Department of Health's Violence in Healthcare Reference Group, of which some of you might actually be on, and also the WorkSafe Health Practice Stakeholder Working Group. There was a broad range of expertise represented in these groups, which included health services, unions and other employer group representatives. Stakeholders have been involved from the very beginning in providing initial insights into the problem, and then all along the way, including having input into the campaign objectives, the creative concept and the ads and the other campaign and communication materials. So we're confident we have a great product thanks to the insights and feedback provided to us by stakeholders, and we've had a really successful start to the campaign. As with all WorkSafe campaigns, extensive research goes into the campaign before development even commences. So this included working with our research partners, the Institute of Safety, Compensation and Recovery Research, to do a literature review and data analysis. And some of the data I talked about just earlier has come out of that research. There was also qualitative in-depth interviews undertaken with healthcare workers, and lots of stakeholder meetings, including the initial insights that I talked about earlier. So this research then provides the basis of the campaign objectives and where what it eventually looks like. So the campaign research identified there's a spectrum of violence and aggression that occurs from the lower levels of aggressive gestures like eye rolling, sneering, through yelling, intimidation, and up to the physical end of biting, hitting, scratching, punching and strangulation. And whilst it's obvious the effects that the more extreme acts of violence can have, it's important to note that the cumulative effects of the behaviours at the lower end of the spectrum, when it's repeatedly experienced, can also have a significant impact on people's health and well-being. So for the campaign, we want the general public, as well as healthcare workers and employers, to believe that none of this behaviour is acceptable, not just the behaviour at the extreme ends of the spectrum. The campaign research also showed a continuum of acceptance. So healthcare workers are more accepting of occupational violence and aggression from people with cognitive impairment like dementia or mental health conditions, and much less accepting of those that are from people who are really just nasty or just trying to use aggression to get what they want. So it was determined that the greatest, and at both ends of those spectrums, it was determined that a public awareness campaign would not have as much impact as what as the part of the spectrum which is around people under stress. So that's what, if you've seen the ads, that's what the ads have actually focused on. But we know that preventing OVA across the board, across this whole spectrum, is essential. And so even though the ads focus on people under stress in scenario, all the campaign tools and materials that have been developed to go with it are focusing on prevention across the board. So some other research, the comments from the interviews and the focus group showed that the community comments were around things like people who commit OVA are not like me, this stuff doesn't happen that often, and getting yelled at isn't that bad. From workers, it was about them expressing that they accept it as part of their job and they need to look after the patient first, that they don't report it because it's too hard and often it's not followed up by their employers. And for employers, it came out that around following up on reports is what they need to do, valuing the staff, and sometimes when they might have zero tolerance policies in place, but that's not necessarily followed through and enacted. So all of that research fed into what the objectives of the campaign are about, and so they're about three things: increasing awareness that OVA against healthcare workers happens. This is aimed at the general community who don't recognise the extent of the problem yet. The other objectives around changing attitudes so that it's not seen as part of the job, and this is for everyone, the general community, healthcare workers and employers. We need a shift within the sector and as well as within the broader community. And lastly, it's about generating action. The end goal is about behaviour change, and for the community this is about stopping the behaviour. For workers it's about reporting the behaviour, and for employers it's about preventing it. So we'll go on and show you the ads. Most of you probably have seen them, but we'll show you the ads now.
I work in aged care to give elderly people the care, emotional support and companionship they need. I care for your loved ones, your mothers, fathers, husbands, wives and grandparents. And this is how you treat me?
Up to 95% of our healthcare workers have experienced verbal or physical assault. No matter what the situation, it's never okay.
So that's the aged care ad. Oh, this is the nurse ad.
I'm here to help when you need it most. Coordinating your care, listening to and supporting you and your loved ones through your recovery. And this is how you treat me?
Up to 95% of our healthcare workers have experienced verbal or physical assault. No matter what the situation, it's never okay.
And
As a paramedic, I help in life-threatening situations. Seizures, drownings, babies on the way, or who've stopped breathing. It's my passion. In an emergency, I'm here for you. And this is how you treat me.
Up to 95% of our healthcare workers have experienced verbal or physical assault. No matter what the situation, it's never okay.
So we think they're pretty powerful, and I think the message we're getting through all the social media and the media is showing that that's pretty much what everyone is thinking. So these are just some stills. So I'm going to hand over to Janelle to talk to you more about all the other campaign materials, but these are stills that are on posters, they're on billboards, and on some other outdoor advertising like the buses and tram stops. So Janelle's going to talk a bit more about what else is there.
So in the development of this this campaign, we met with different focus groups. So that included the workers, so including nurses, paramedics, aged care workers, and also the community. And they were split into two groups: the unlikely to commit OVA and also the likely to commit OVA. And so as we were testing these, we tested the campaign objectives, and they scored very highly with these groups. So the 3 campaign objectives to increase awareness that OVA in the healthcare sector happens scored a 9 out of 10, as did the increases to the belief that OVA is not part of the job, and these were across all 3 of the groups, as well as the belief that both the extreme acts of violence and the yelling and threatening of people, making aggressive gestures, is all unacceptable. And I guess some of the discussions in the group were, I guess particularly in the community groups, really unaware that this was a problem, that this happened, that healthcare workers had to deal with this every day. So now the other sorts of media channels, it'll be in TV, metro and regional cinemas, radio, you may have heard it yourselves, and out of home, so in the bus panels, so side of the buses, tram and bus stops, near hospitals, and also online. So if people are accessing social media and in hospitals as well, then it's more likely obviously to come up as well in their social media. So employer resources, so there's all the CEOs, OHS managers, nursing was sent through some emails over the last 2 weeks when it came out, and also there's hard copy packs going out to each hospital now as well, and they include a letter from the department, a suggestion about what you can do next with the campaign materials, a brochure with the key messages, and a case study booklet, and we thank there's a number of people in the room that have shared their case studies, so thank you for those. And also some posters for the staff and community, but there's also all of these resources that can also be accessed via the campaign website, so I'll show you that in a second. Also in the packs is the organisational response framework that the department has recently released, and I'll talk about that in my next presentation. So the staff posters, that's an example of what they look like, and there's an opportunity to put down your own individual way that you report in that little box there. And the small wording that you probably can't read very well is up to 95% of our healthcare workers have experienced verbal or physical assault, but these incidents are currently chronically underreported. Aggression and violence is never okay. Report to your employer so together we can work towards reducing these incidents and stop it happening to you and your colleagues again. That's an example of the brochures and case studies I was talking about. And there is also a link in the materials, not the actual WorkSafe guidance, because it's a pretty big, thick, heavy document, but you can download those, and it shows you where to go to on the WorkSafe website about their refreshed guidance on occupational violence and aggression. There's also communications toolkit, so there's materials that will help you in your health service to either use the images, there's still images, so you can use it in the different ways you'd like to in your health service. There's a PowerPoint template so that you can present it to your different teams or staff. e-newsletter articles so that you've already got the copy to use within your own articles, and your email signature block. So all of that can be downloaded on the campaign website. So now for the campaign website. So it's on the WorkSafe website, and you've got all those details in your little goodie bags today for the link. And you'll notice down the bottom that you can order more of those hard copy materials. Some will be coming to your health service, but also we understand that you probably need more, and obviously they'll be posted out to you, so you can order what you need. Okay, I'll finish up there, and I think we're holding questions to the end of this section. Thanks.
That's okay with it, yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Patrice and Janelle, for presenting that information about the campaign. It just makes you jump when you see that stuff, doesn't it? And I know that's something that people are seeing in the workplace all the time, but the ads are quite confronting, really. We've got an opportunity now to ask any questions or make any comments about the presentations that Patrice and Janelle have just made. I'd just like to remind the people from rural Victoria that you're very much a part of this session, and you're very welcome to put forward your questions or comments at this point, and there'll be somebody to receive them and to bring them into the discussions. We've got 2 fixed microphones here, and we're going to be inviting people to come forward to the microphones to ask your questions or make your comments. So please feel free to just stand up and walk forward, and if you need to just take your place there at the standing mic and put forward your questions to Patrice or Janelle. So we've got a first taker over here, and if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Of course. My name is Dr. Ernie Gombeck. I'm one of the neurosurgical registrars at the Alfred. Thank you very much for the talk. There's a lot of people here. I know that to some degree it pleases all of us to see these people, and in my opinion it's quite on the contrary. It just means how bad is the problem that so many people came here from such far distance. What I want to say, if you don't mind, and that is, I noticed your presentation, and please don't get me wrong, I'm very happy that finally this issue is brought to people's attention. My wife is a nurse, and whilst I can handle some violence, I certainly don't want my wife to be in that situation, because I don't think we can all handle violence equally, and I think some of the violence, or any violence, is inappropriate. But here's the reality. As a neurosurgical registrar, you probably would be aware that one of my colleagues that came out in the news not that long ago was the first one to be stabbed in a foyer, as far as I can remember, in Victoria. Everyone here, I'm sure, remember that was all over the media. I remember it very well. And I also saw his painful recovery since then. And I also saw how the media quiets down after that. And I also saw the reports that came after that. But here is the sad reality. About a month ago, we also know that we received a patient. In fact, I was on call that night. Okay? And that patient, as we know, months later has passed away, and my condolences to his family. And I was on call again that night that he passed away. And then within that month, 30 days that he was managed, we have here one of the nurse in charges on the wards. We ran to a code grey, 7 code greys in fact, on one of the ward patients that was very difficult to manage. In fact, he was very easy to manage in ED. He was unconscious. We took out his acute subdural, and then he was very hard to manage, but on the ward. No CCTV. The security didn't arrive every time within the time that we want. Is my safety guaranteed? And what about my wife? If she runs to the code grey, what about my nurses? If they run to the code grey, are their security guaranteed? What I want to know with this campaign is, I understand that you have focus groups, but what I don't see in those focus groups is those people that are going to sit and have a look around with us at night shift, average night shift, 7 code greys. Who assures my safety over the last months? Am I going to be the next one that we're going to stand a minute silence here and somebody will tell my wife the same news that I had to unfortunately tell somebody else? This sorry, I'll just ask my question.
Yes, please.
Whilst all of these media campaigns perceived to be to some degree effective, perceived, as a person right there on the ground, I can tell you that they're not received by the people that perpetuate violence. And that is a remark that may hurt people here, perhaps, because there's a lot of hard work that went into that. But it is the truth, because over the months, 3 weeks, I think you correctly pointed out that they were running, I had, as I said, night after night, more and more violence. And that violence could have ended up in the same result. And so if we're going to stand here and pretend like it's not, then we should probably walk out of here. What I want to suggest to the crowd here is that we don't, number one. Number two, that we don't just look at the emergency department, because that does not prevent both of those cases, whilst I have to say the emergency cops did a lot. Number three, that we need to match the security with the amount of incidents in every hospital, and we need to do it pretty soon, because I'm going to start at some point refusing to walk into code grey until somebody can tell me that my safety or my wife's safety is assured. Not just that, not a slogan at the end of some corridor, but assured. Because if somebody wants to tell me that I need to manage a patient appropriately, first and foremost, I need to be safe when I come in there. And then we should legally be protected to say that sometimes I don't want my staff to get hurt. And the decisions that I make, like, for example, giving sedatives to a patient day 0 after a craniotomy, are such that are not in the best interest of a patient as a general rule. But who is there to protect me if there is no CCTV? It's my word against theirs. I want you guys to reflect on that, please, in this forum.
Thank you very much for that question. And thank you for, I can imagine that those experiences that you're portraying have been horrendous for you and the teams working with you in your professional career. So thank you for sharing it with us. It puts it into stark reality. How do we make sure this campaign or the package of initiatives, because it's not just the campaign, how do we make sure that the whole package of initiatives creates sustainable change? How do we make sure at the end of the day, when there is a conflict between staff safety and patient care, how is that resolved? So perhaps we'll start with those two questions, and perhaps Janelle, you might like to kick off.
So probably my next presentation, I think, around the department's work, and certainly acknowledge that this is only one aspect of this work, and I think we know that a really multifaceted approach is needed, and it's not one solution. So, you know, putting in one thing is not going to make the significant change. It's working all of these things out together. So the awareness campaign is one approach, and it should sit alongside all the other work that is going on. And that's really about increasing the awareness to the public, and we know that that's only going to have an impact or a potential impact for, you know, a set group of people, and it's not going to solve all of the problems, but it's really about how that can work together to increase awareness while we are committing extra resources to security, while we are working to improve the CCTV, the physical environment, improving training and those resources as well. So I think it is about all of those things working together to really help to prevent and to improve the safety, and so that you can go to work and feel that you are safe and that your employer supports you to be safe at work.
Thanks, Janelle. Patrice, any comments from you?
I'll probably just reiterate what Janelle's saying. There is a lot of other work going on. Acknowledge that what you're saying is real, and I think that's what's led to, you know, the collaboration between WorkSafe Ambulance and the department. there is, and I think Janelle's right. She will be telling you all the other work that is actually going on, which is about action. You're right. The campaign and ads can look flashy, but we will be evaluating what comes out of that as well. This will be an ongoing campaign. It's not going to be a one-off, and we'll evaluate. WorkSafe will continue to work with the department and work to try and generate action. We're out there, from a WorkSafe perspective, we're out there doing visits at the moment, specifically on occupational violence, and so there is a lot of work going on. And I think today's part of trying to share that, to try and I think it's everyone's responsibility. Everyone has to start working on this, including people who are experiencing this, making sure they're reporting it. If only 1 in 5 people are reporting it, then within a health service you may not even realise how big the problem is. So I think that's where it starts from a worker perspective.
Okay, thanks Patrice and Janelle. In the absence of any other questions at this point, we might move on to hear from Janelle about the overall hospital strategy. Can I ask you to thank Patrice and Janelle for that initial presentation? And then we'll ask Janelle to come forward and tell us more about that sort of integrated strategy. So thanks, Janelle.
Thank you. Okay. So I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting today and pay my respects to their elders past and present, and any elders that may be in the room with us today. Thank you for the opportunity to present today on the strategies our team's been working on related to occupational violence. I'll go through what we've been working through, and it's there's still a lot of work still to occur, but we'll be giving you a bit of a update on where things are at. So we know in this area that it's been very well reviewed over the years, and I think Denise mentioned before that one of the first reviews was in 2005. The latest being the Victorian Auditor General's report in 2015 that made 10 recommendations that were related to incident reporting, investigation and the effectiveness of controls, leadership and accountability, being able to understand the problem and use the data to better inform prevention, and also improving awareness, the consistent training and tools that are provided, and better collaboration in particular between WorkSafe and the department, and better guidance from both those organisations. But I guess all the reviews point to the fact that I think we've just discussed as well, no one action will make a significant improvement. Leadership and accountability is paramount here. Training and support at all levels, and a reporting culture needs to improve. So following the release of the VAGO audit, the Victorian Minister for Health, Minister Hennessy, established the task force, and many people in this room today may have been involved in that. The task force was made up of representatives from the ANMF, from AMA, HACSU, Health Workers Union, Victorian Managed Insurance Authority, health service executives in the department, and was led by WorkSafe CEO Claire Amys. And they considered the work that had previously been undertaken, and the prevalence and the changing prevalence in this area, and the audits that were done previously. And they made recommendations to the department about how we could, what key actions were needed, and how we needed to respond to the VAGO audit as well to have the best impact. So their findings were that the findings of the task force revolve around the need for improved awareness and reporting of occupational violence, a consistent approach to equipping the sector to prevent and respond to occupational violence, and a better understanding and sharing of learnings, best practice guidance and innovations. They found that the approach needed to be multifaceted and targeted. to have the best impact, and that it's needed to focus on changing culture, a culture that it's not part of the job and it's not acceptable. So we know that culture change can only be achievable when there's a high degree of awareness of the issue, when there's engagement at all levels, the knowledge and competency in place to support response and action, and there's strong leadership and clear accountability. The department strategy, which was released last year, has been worked on to implement the actions, and they focus on raising awareness through the awareness campaign, public reporting and sharing the learnings like today, building knowledge and capability through providing guidance and consistent training, and responding and taking action by creating safe environments. So for instance, like the Health Service Violence Prevention Fund, what we can do to improve the environments, and also increasing accountability with boards and leaders. So the strategy includes 8 different platforms, and these are around governance, so supporting leadership to guide and support organisational management and responses, improving practice and preventing risk by sharing good practice to build capacity and reduce the fragmentation and duplication across the sector, improving investigation and the establishment of controls after we learn from incidents. Education and training, focused on delivering a more consistent approach to support the upskilling of the workforce. Facility design through improved guidance and investments in upgrades. Community awareness, so the public awareness campaign, which we've already discussed. And reporting, simplifying a reporting system to increase the reporting of incidents, and so we are able to learn better from them and able to prevent future incidents. Improving security and post-incident response and support that we provide. So to deliver against these key platforms, the department has taken a view that efforts must span a continuum of prevention, early intervention, management and response. Overall, we want to reduce the level of violence in our hospitals, driven by a strong culture that does not tolerate violence in the workplace. The strategy aims for everyone to be involved in preventing violence, and staff feel supported to report incidents, and feedback is provided so that learning occurs to establish better controls and preventative strategies. Health service boards and management are informed of the risks and can take action to respond to prevent incidents and provide a safe workplace for their staff. Since the release of the task force report in June 2016, the department has been working on implementation. I'll go through where we're at with that. So with the assistance of a sector-wide occupational violence reference group, the department has been working on the following actions aimed at addressing occupational violence and aggression. So we introduced requirements for hospitals and boards to publicly report violent incidents, supporting the evidence-based policies such as the release of the body-worn camera policy, and also revising Code Grey standards. The revision of the Code Grey standards has occurred, is underway currently, and we're hoping to have something out in the next couple of months in regards to that. And that you may have been, many people in this room may have been involved in the work to survey how those Code Grey standards were being implemented, and what some of the barriers and enablers are around that. And we've taken on a lot of that feedback. So improving the capability of the sector through consistent minimum standards for occupational violence and aggression training. So you may be aware that that was released 2 weeks ago, and I'll talk more on that in a different slide. And also further work around training is underway to develop online scenarios to be used within your existing training to help you with the with training in your health service, and help you with resources, and also an evaluation framework. And they will be out later in 2017, as well as the rollout of safe wards, which we're going to hear about later. We've already discussed the awareness campaign that was released, and also the improving safety and security of the facilities by establishing and rolling out the Health Service Violence Prevention Fund to improve hospital and mental health facilities. So hopefully you're aware that the round 3 of that has been released 2 weeks ago, and there is an additional 20 million to the Health Service Violence Prevention Fund, which was announced a couple of weeks ago also. And that will include establishing more behavioural assessment rooms across the state, as well as your other capital infrastructure, like your CCTVs, your redesigning areas to make them safer, looking at access and egress as well. So the other work, improving consultation processes so that the sector's expertise is used to guide and support the development of design guidelines. That work's underway around the health facility design guidelines and their translation into specific projects so that the right people are involved when work is underway and there's a new build or an upgrade right from the start, and we are considering occupational violence and aggression actively right from the start around those projects so that things are built in a way that supports safety. Improving security responses. Firstly, we have surveyed all health services around their security, so we're aware of the levels of security in each health service, and we have now engaged a security expert to further focus on developing guidance around security, and that will be out later in 2017 as well. The recently announced boost for security personnel at hospitals with emergency departments across the state, with additional resources being deployed to hotspots to better protect hospital staff, and patients will be informed by further work over the coming weeks around that. The simplified mechanism for reporting, to enable better awareness and an ability to establish those controls, and work is still underway, and we know the system is not where we want it to be now, and it's not at a level that is user-friendly. So there is further work, a lot of further work to do in that space, and that's underway. Improving the way health services respond to incidents. So we have commissioned an expert review to look at the organisational-wide response. So how health service, what processes you have in place to respond appropriately, to prevent and to be feeding in and learning from those incidents. And a framework, which I'll discuss in another slide, has been developed to help guide health service leaders around what should be in place. And we have developed a website for sharing resources, and I'll go through that in another slide as well. So there's also a number of other projects that are underway around developing post-incident support tools, and that work will happen over the next few months. And also around some further training tools. It's already covered. So the framework, a little bit more on that. The department commissioned a review of the evidence on management of occupational violence and aggression and an independent review of organisational responses to OC violence last year. A range of health services were visited, and the organisational approach to preventing and managing the risks of occupational violence and aggression were reviewed. There were excellent examples of good work being done, and we need to share those. There were common elements that were seen in health services and that had seen improvements in this space and also across the literature. From this, the department has worked with the Violence in Healthcare Reference Group to develop the framework, which you'll see there. I think it's in your packs today. And this tool is designed to be a one-page, easy-to-read framework of the key components that organisations need to have in place to address occupational violence and aggression. The framework covers governance, prevention, training, response, reporting and investigation. So it can be used as a gap analysis, really, where improvements may be required at your health service. It also aligns with the ANMF's 10-point plan, so it can assist you in your EBA requirement to develop an action plan. The framework will also be supported, because I mentioned that we did find some really great examples of things and work being done, and we have pulled those into a document, so it will also be supported by a more detailed document from the findings that will be released in the coming month that will support some of those areas of the framework. So how you can think of different ways to address things, so it give you different examples of some good work that's been done in the space, and also some case studies around those. So the Guide for Violence and Aggression Training in Victorian Health Services. So as I mentioned, that was released 2 weeks ago. And that really has been developed from, I guess, a long piece of work that has been done over the years around training, particularly in emergency, and some of the work done by Jonathan Knott and his team, and also some recent work commissioned by mental health, in their mental health, and underway by Brian McKenna. And so the reference group pulled those pieces together, and it's based on a tiered approach to training based on the level of risk. And this will be supported by the other work that I've already mentioned, the digital occupational violence and aggression scenarios, and the evaluation framework, so enabling you to better assess whether your training is being effective, and what further might be needed. The website. So now we're up and running. If anyone's done a website, you know that they don't always run to time or smoothly. So it is finally up and going. And all the resources that we have available now are on the same page. So I guess that's also been an issue over the years, is there's information, but it's all in different spots. So now it is in one spot, and as you can actually register for that as well, and you can get updates as we put more information and guidance on there. So your links are in your bag there as well. Also on the website, we have put a new thing, which is to tell us what you're doing in your health service. So we want to be able to share good things. We want to be able to not be reinventing the wheel. And so there is an opportunity there for you to share and tell us what you're doing, and then we can share that on the website as well. And also a reference group, so you can keep up to date. We'll be putting all the summary information up there from our reference group meetings. So for more information, we've got the website obviously, and also our worker health and wellbeing email. So please stay in touch. I'm always really keen to talk to you and talk to people around what's happening on the ground, what can we do to assist, and what will make a difference. So please get in touch, and happy to have a chat.
Janelle, thank you very much. Now, a little bit of time left to invite some further questions from Janelle after that presentation. I might ask Patrice to come back up to the stage as well. And Denise, I think, is going to join us. So we've got a few minutes just to ask any more questions about the department's approach, WorkSafe's approach to this issue. If you'd like to come forward, yeah, thank you. Just come forward to the microphone and introduce yourself and direct your question to the panel. Just hold it nice and close to the mic, yeah. Can we have that microphone on? Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much for your informative talk and for the information that you've given. My name is Ingrid Riddler. I'm from the Mercy Hospital for Women. I'm the Mercy at Home manager, and I average between 12 and 13,000 visits in the community. So this is pretty applicable to where we are in the community services. And I'd like to know from your review what we are doing, not in hospitals, but also what are we doing in the community, keeping our staff safe, because we've been exposed to some very near misses, and I want to know how the transition is going to help my staff in the community, because this is just a small unit, but I'm pretty sure there's over about 900 staff every day going out into the services. So if you could just elaborate on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Janelle, would you like to start with that?
Yep, absolutely. So the work of the framework, so really that, I guess, provides the basis for your health service to work around. That should cover all of your areas, so it's very relevant for community, and to be able to be identifying those risks and working through the individual preventative strategies and how you're getting, I guess, that information, making sure that the information is well known before you are going out into the community. The other thing is also, I guess, the Health Service Violence Prevention Fund in particular, and so that's open for health services, and we funded particularly a lot of portable duress alarms last year, and so that's one aspect of improving the safety around particularly those community visits, and that's still an option to apply for this year as well in the Violence Prevention Fund. But I guess all of these we would see is applicable to community as well. So for instance, the training standards as well for training the staff that are going out into the community, they need to be tailored and risk-based. So, you know, it's understanding those risks that you're going out to the community and making sure that the training covers that, and that is included in the training principles that we've developed.
Denise, comment from you?
Yeah, I will just comment, and I think it's probably just to put in context, and people may or may not be aware that last week, I think it was the 20th of this month, we actually held a forum with your board CEO, your board chairs and CEOs or board representatives from all across the state in terms of the public health services. We had about 150 people at that session, at that forum. It was an all-day session, so you can imagine getting senior executives and boards to actually attend was an indication, I think, of how seriously they are also taking this issue. The materials that Janelle talked about in terms of the organisational framework and the guidance has been circulated to them, particularly the organisational framework. And I spoke to the audience around the opportunity for boards to use that framework to actually do that assessment of their organisation as a whole. So it's not just about, and as the speaker said before, it's not just about emergency departments. It is about thinking about this issue across the whole organisation, across all of the staff groups, and that was the message that we're driving home. The reason we've put public reporting in board reports is for this very reason. It's about elevating the issue to that level. It's about actually saying this is a board responsibility. They've taken it on, they are addressing it. The number of people I had come up to me afterwards in terms of the boards and CEOs asking for how they do more. How can we help as a department, and we are not the employers, we can only help and assist with materials, but they are interested, and I would encourage you to make sure that as individuals in your health service, you're going back and having those conversations as well.
Thanks, Denise. So would it be fair to say that the department's approach is about making sure that boards are aware of their obligations, have got the tools to understand the workplace, whether it's in the community or whether it's in a tertiary institution, whether it's in an emergency department or an intensive care unit or whatever, and are held to account. So the department's doing those things with the boards, is making sure that the boards understand their responsibilities as directors and their obligation to account to the department and to be aware of the tools that the department and WorkSafe are making available for them.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think the WorkSafe issue is also kind of clear here too with the program that the health practice team and others.
Patrice?
I think from a WorkSafe perspective, the expectation is that employers provide a safe workplace, and it doesn't matter if that's different to the majority of the health service. Each of the areas have different risks, and those risks need to be identified specifically and specific controls put in place to address the specific risks. It's not a one-size-fits-all, and that's the expectation across the board.
Okay, so thank you for that question. That was really helpful. Do we have any questions from our rural people? No, nothing yet. I can encourage them to keep being involved. We'll have a final question here, thanks.
Hi, my name's Tim Sell. I'm the Managing Director of International Security Training Academy. I've been working in the crowd control industry for the last 30 years, teaching non-violent restraint control techniques and de-escalation skills. I've been working in the medical industry for the last 18 years and working with St Vincent's,
Perhaps we can get to the question.
and so on.
Yep.
So the big issue that we find is when we go national, that there's different states and territories that have different standards. Is there a vision for a code of practice like we did with the crowd control venue code of practice with WorkSafe Victoria? Is there a national code of practice on the agenda for aggression and violence in the health sector?
Who'd like to take that? Janelle?
There isn't currently. That's probably the short answer to that. However, I absolutely am aware. We do a lot of work with other jurisdictions and sharing our work, so we know that we have the same issues, definitely. We do have different legislation though in instances around this, so there are some differences there. But also we share our work. Just last week we were sharing it with Queensland, and we take something off Queensland as well. So there's a fair bit of, consultation there and working together around that. But no, at the moment there isn't. Hasn't been any discussion around a national framework or the like. But certainly I know security. There's work that's been done in New South Wales. We actually had New South Wales come and present to our CEO on board from a week ago, and also Queensland are doing some work around security, and we're sharing that as well. So we are trying to, use each other and others' knowledge and get some consistency, where we can. But formally, as far as a framework, there isn't anything at the moment.
Okay. Any other comments from the panel on that? Thank you. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we might draw that session to a close now. I'd like to thank all of our presenters on your behalf. You can thank them with me. Thank you. Give them a clap for their presentations. Had some interesting issues raised about just the range of workplaces that people are working in, accountability arrangements, which I think are a very important issue, and some very useful information about the work the Department and WorkSafe are doing. So thanks for that. We're going to have a break for morning tea. Are people cold in the room? Yes. We'll try and fix that for you over morning tea. Just trying to keep you wide awake. Back at 11, folks. Thanks very much.